Hey, Patrick here. We're back and we are on lesson 10.04, developing deeper contact with suppliers. Moving right along in this finding a supplier module, huh? All right, checking back in. We're finding your top supplier. We are getting down to it. We're heading into that top 3 arena there. Wanting to get down to the last few top 3 suppliers that we can then go off to the races with, right? We want to keep dwindling our list down so we can get the best supplier we possibly can for our product hunting, for our product manufacturing to happen soon. Okay, so this one's going to be real short. Developing deeper contact with suppliers. So this is going to be all about choosing your top 3, and this is after filtering, checklist, message number 1 and message number 2, which we've already gone through. And this is, the second part of this is going to be expanding the conversation, okay? So we're just progressing through our conversation with these suppliers as we get closer and closer to the finish line. So, number 1, choosing your top 3. So I want you to look over your supplier master results thus far, right? Which 3 stick out as your top choices? I want you to look at all the data that you have on the supplier master that you've entered from all the communications from your suppliers, all the responses from those that so far that made it past that checklist, made it past the filtering. And if you have not entered the information from your message 1 response and message 2 response and message 2B response on the supplier master for each of those suppliers that made it there, I want you to go back and do that now, okay? Once again, if you have not entered all the information and all the answers to those questions that your supplier was asked by you, if you have not entered those answers on the supplier master supplier sheet under each supplier name, I want you to go back and do that now, okay? Because now we're going to be looking over your supplier master results, and we're going to ask which 3 stick out as your top choices. Did they communicate well when messaging? Okay, you got to think about that. Did they answer all your questions? Are their prices competitive with other suppliers? As you're looking at the whole sheet there, you can see your prices for the 1,000 units, 5,000 units, and 10,000 units. You can compare their prices right down that row, right? Are their sample fees similar to the rest of the suppliers' quotes? Can they deliver on what you need them to? Do they go above and beyond with their correspondence? Remember how well they answer your questions. Did they answer you promptly? Were they kind? Were they nice? Were they polite? Were they respectful? And when thinking about placing 20 orders in the next 5 years, are you excited? When you think about this one supplier, working with them, are you excited to work with them? Or are you dreading it already? Important questions to be asking here, okay? Second part of this lesson, expanding the conversation. So this is where I want you to move the conversation off of Alibaba over to either WeChat or Skype. Whatever they put in their correspondence to you was their primary choice of platform off of Alibaba. If they did not tell you yet, go back to the Alibaba messaging, send them a message now and ask them, hey, could we please move our conversation to somewhere else? Would you prefer WeChat or Skype or other, question mark, and wait for their response. So Alibaba or other messaging platforms are difficult to keep track of communications over time. It's just like email. It's like, how do you, if you've got like 100 different messages going back and forth, and you're using the messaging service in Alibaba, and you've got like 200 supplier messages in Alibaba, how are you going to really keep on top of that? It's a lot more difficult on Alibaba than it will be in the social media communications platforms like WeChat and Skype, okay? Trust me, been down this road hundreds of times. Definitely easier to move them off of the Alibaba platform, okay? I want you to ask for an explanation on their MOQ. So you're over on WeChat now, you're talking to them, you're on Skype, you're talking to them, you're messaging them. Mind you, they're going to be answering you all times of day and night. And I want you to go look up right now on Google go figure out what time it is in the country that you are talking to your supplier in. So if they're in China, look up what time is it in Xiamen, China. Go to their address and see where they're at. Go look up and see what time it is there now. Typically, how I figure it, here on the West Coast of the United States, usually when it's 5 o'clock here, we're about typically 8 hours ahead of China. So 5 o'clock here is actually 9 o'clock in the morning in where most of my suppliers are at in China. Okay? So about 8 hours ahead. So if you're East Coast, you would be 11 hours ahead, right? If you're on the East Coast, then when you're reaching out at 8 p.m., it is actually 9 a.m. in China. So keep that in mind, okay? When you start conversing with these people and you're going to be going back and forth negotiating and working out your orders and your product design and packaging design and all the things that you're going to be working with with your supplier on, the quicker the better you can do this. And so if you're communicating with them live, you can get a lot more done in a short amount of time. So what you want to do is make sure that you're reaching out on the WeChat or the Skype when they might be available to answer your questions right away. Okay? So wait till the evening. Typically when I'm in the supplier stage of a new product, I'll be staying up late, up to midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, because I have conversations I have going with my suppliers, right? And they're just in the morning, midday of their work by the time it's midnight here in California. Okay? Midnight here in California is, 4 o'clock in the afternoon in China. So that's why I'll carry my conversations up to when they're done working for the day. It's still midnight or 1 o'clock here. They're still working. They're finishing up their work days pretty quick. I carry my conversations, try to finish them out in that day. All right? You can't always do that. You might have to come back the next day. But if you're reaching out to them in the morning where you're at here in the United States, then you have to wait 8 hours for them to get your message because they're sleeping. If it's morning here, it's sleeping time in China. Okay? So asking these questions and starting this dialogue, do it at the right time of day. Okay? It's just better that way. Or be ready to start. You can ask the question early in the day, wait for them to get to work and to check their messages later in the day. But once they start answering them, then you start that banter. You start that go back and forth messaging. Okay? So you want to ask more questions on anything that you are unclear on or that they fail to answer clearly or at all. So you can see the non-yellow questions on your supplier's Product A sheet, right? There's all those line items that were highlighted in yellow. You can now start asking them the ones that are not highlighted in yellow, which would include, like, does it meet all the specifications, list any missing requirements, the payment terms, things such as that, right? Does a patent exist? You could ask them if you're concerned about patents on this product. You can always ask your supplier, is this product patented, right? So all those items that are not highlighted in yellow on your supplier sheet. Okay, so you could mention that this will be a trial order. That's a good thing to talk about. Obviously, you're not going to just throw these things out there. You're going to be in the middle of dialogue with them. And don't forget, you always want to start out saying, hey, how's it going? How are you? How is the weather there? My kids and I just went fishing over the weekend, and we were happy that the temperatures were down from the hundreds to the 90s here. How's the temperature there? It may seem like small talk and a waste of time, but it is not. You need to develop a working relationship with these people, and it's somewhat, get a little bit personal. Make that connection, build that long-term connection. Okay. And lastly, you can tell them that larger orders will be placed after our in-house checks are completed. You're kind of dialoguing with them to kind of get them ready to do the next steps, which is going to be ordering samples. Okay, but we had to move them off of Alibaba or off of whatever messaging or email platform you were talking to them on, move them on to something more convenient, and then kind of get used to talking to them on there, and then within your first few messages, we're going to do what's coming up next. Okay. Which is order samples. All right, so your action item number 1 for this one is reach out to your top 3 suppliers on their chosen channel off Alibaba, like on WeChat. Ask for enough explanation on their MOQ. Don't go too deep in discussing it. Mention that this will be a trial order. You can tell them that large orders will be placed after our in-house checks are completed. And keep in mind, you will be ordering samples next. So if you start this conversation, make sure that you've watched the next lesson already. So you can go right into ordering samples. Okay, I'm going to explain in the next lesson how to order samples. Okay, all right, this is a short one, real quick action item, and we'll be catching with you next one. Hopefully this has been useful, and I hope this short one's like a little bonus for you. It's like a cool, not a 35, 80 minute, not a 35, 45, 50 minute rambling on by Patrick. This is a 10-minute one, right? All right, I'll see you on the next one. Take care.